New York was bathed in the bright and frenetic lights that never sleep, but for Emma, everything seemed dark and oppressive. She had decided to surprise James, her husband, by returning a day early from her business trip. With an eager smile, she entered the restaurant where they had planned to dine many times. But the scene awaiting her inside shattered her world in an instant. Emma stopped at the entrance, her heart pounding uncontrollably. At the discreet table in the back of the restaurant, James was sitting with Victoria, his longtime friend. They laughed and talked in a way Emma had never seen before. There was something intimate and treacherous about their closeness. Every laugh from James felt like a stab in Emma's heart. She felt her legs weaken, and the world around her seemed to spin. Trying to catch her breath, she slowly approached, each step heavier than the last. When she finally reached the table, James' smile instantly disappeared at the sight of her. Victoria looked uncomfortable, nervously fiddling with the napkin on her lap. "Emma, what are you doing here?" James tried to sound casual, but the guilt in his eyes was unmistakable. Emma swallowed hard, her voice trembling with pain and disbelief. "I should ask you the same, James. What is happening here?" Victoria looked down, unable to meet Emma's gaze. The silence became unbearable until James, realizing there was no easy way out, finally confessed. "Victoria and I have been together for over a year." The words echoed in Emma's mind like a death sentence. Over a year. A year of lies, a year of betrayal. She felt a lump form in her throat, the tears threatening to fall. The pain was overwhelming, like someone was tearing her heart out of her chest. "How could you, James? I trusted you." Emma's voice broke, sadness transforming into anger and desperation. James tried to touch her, but Emma recoiled, her eyes filled with hurt and disappointment. "Don't touch me!" she screamed, feeling the betrayal burning in every fiber of her being. The humiliation of being betrayed by two of the people she trusted most was unbearable. The restaurant around her seemed to disappear, leaving Emma alone in her suffering. The tears finally fell and she ran out, each step more painful than the last. Back in her empty apartment, Emma threw herself on the bed, her sobs becoming uncontrollable. James and Victoria's betrayal haunted her. Every happy memory with James was now tainted by the shadow of infidelity. She felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her feet, and she was falling into an abyss of pain and despair. Emma lay there in the dark, feeling completely alone. The pain of the betrayal was an open wound that seemed like it would never heal. She wanted to scream, wanted to hit something, wanted to make the pain stop. But all she could do was cry, the tears flowing endlessly, as her heart shattered more with each passing second. Emma's suffering was palpable, a crushing weight that suffocated her. The love she felt for James was now a source of unbearable agony. Emma barely managed to sleep that night. The few hours of sleep she did get were disturbed by nightmares and painful memories. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw James and Victoria together, laughing, as if she had never existed. The dawn brought a new wave of pain and a decision she never thought she would have to make: to file for divorce. She got up, her eyes red and swollen from the previous night's tears. With trembling hands, Emma picked up the phone and called her lawyer. "I want to start the divorce process," she said, her voice broken but determined. Each word felt like it was tearing a piece of her heart out, but she knew there was no other choice. The apartment, once a home full of love and laughter, now seemed like a battlefield, filled with painful memories. Emma began packing her things, each object a reminder of a life that had been destroyed. A wedding photo, a shirt James loved to wear, even his cologne still lingering in the air. Everything made her choke with pain. Meanwhile, James tried to defend himself, begging for another chance. "Emma, please, we can overcome this," he said, his voice full of despair. But Emma couldn't look at him without feeling deep sadness and betrayal. "There's nothing more to say, James. You destroyed everything." She moved into a hotel, a cold and impersonal place that matched her emotional state. The nights were lonely, and the bed seemed enormous and empty. Emma spent hours staring at the ceiling, the deafening silence her only companion. She cried until she had no more tears, the pain of James and Victoria's betrayal turning into an open wound that seemed endless. One of those lonely nights, Emma received a text message from Victoria. "I'm sorry for everything," the message read. "I never wanted you to get hurt." Emma almost threw the phone against the wall. How dare Victoria try to justify her actions? As if a simple apology could erase the pain she had caused? Emma replied with trembling hands, "You betrayed me. You betrayed our friendship. There's no excuse for what you did." She turned off the phone and threw herself on the bed, the sobs returning with full force. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, and she felt more alone than ever. Days passed and the divorce process moved forward. Each meeting with the lawyer was a brutal reminder of the end of her marriage. "You are right to move on," the lawyer said one day, trying to comfort her. But his words were empty. Nothing could ease the pain Emma felt. Meanwhile, James continued to send messages and call, begging for a second chance. Emma read each message with tears in her eyes, but her heart was decided. "I can't go back, James. You destroyed me." Emma's suffering was palpable. Each day seemed like a struggle to breathe, to continue. She wondered if the pain would ever lessen, if she would ever feel whole again. But for now, all she could do was move forward, one step at a time, trying to rebuild her life from the ashes. Emma's emotions were a constant roller coaster of sadness, anger, confusion, and a profound sense of loss. Each interaction with James was a cruel reminder of the love she once knew and the betrayal that now consumed her life. She felt like a puppet, her strings cut, desperately trying to find a way to stand on her own. And so Emma navigated through the days, the pain accumulating in her chest like an unbearable weight, not knowing what the future held, but determined to find a way to survive. Emma dragged herself through the days, trying to find some normalcy amidst the emotional chaos that her life had become. But then, something unexpected happened. She began to feel different, a deep and constant fatigue that she couldn't explain. Initially, she attributed it to the stress of the divorce, the incessant pain of the betrayal. But when the morning sickness started, Emma knew something was wrong. She bought a pregnancy test, her hands trembling and her heart racing. The lines appeared quickly, confirming her suspicions. Emma was pregnant with James' child. Shock and fear enveloped her like a crushing wave. Sitting on the cold bathroom floor, she hugged her knees and cried like never before. Life seemed to be mocking her, placing yet another burden on her already weary shoulders. The news of the pregnancy brought a devastating dilemma. Telling James could mean an attempt at reconciliation, a chance to save what was left of their marriage. But Emma couldn't imagine going back to him after everything. The pain was too deep, the trust completely shattered. She needed to decide on her own, but the decision seemed impossible. One night, while lying in the hotel bed, thoughts racing in circles, Emma felt the baby move for the first time. It was a light, almost imperceptible movement, but she whispered to herself, "You don't deserve this. You deserve to be loved and cared for. And I promise I will do that for you." Emma decided not to tell James. The decision was painful, but she knew she couldn't bear the idea of returning to him. She would move back to her family's house, where she could have some support, even though she knew it wouldn't be easy. Her parents had always been critical of her luxurious lifestyle, and now, pregnant and alone, she feared their rejection. Returning to her parents' house was bittersweet. Emma felt the security of a familiar place, but also the judgment in her mother's looks and the uncomfortable silence from her father. "Will you be okay, dear?" her mother asked one night while they were having dinner in silence. Emma just nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Words of support were few and far between, and the weight of responsibility seemed overwhelming. Amidst it all, Emma continued to struggle with her own feelings of inadequacy and fear. She feared not being strong enough to raise a child alone, feared that the baby would feel the absence of a father. But each time she felt the baby move, it was a reminder that she wasn't truly alone. There was a small life inside her that needed her, that trusted her to be strong. The nights were long and lonely, and Emma spent hours staring at the ceiling, wondering how her life had come to this. She cried for the uncertain future, for the loss of what she thought would be a happy family. But deep down there was a spark of determination. Emma knew she needed to be strong, not just for herself but for the baby who depended on her. She found some comfort in small moments, like when her father, silent and rigid, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder one morning and said, "We will get through this together." It was a small gesture, but for Emma it meant the world. Each day was a battle against sadness and fear, but she was determined to win. Emma felt that her parents' house, once a place of refuge, was now an emotional prison. Each day was a struggle against rejection and judgment. Her mother, Margaret, couldn't hide her disapproval. "You always had everything, Emma. How could you let your life fall apart like this?" Her voice was harsh, but Emma saw the concern behind the words. It was a painful blow, another reminder of her mistakes and failures. The relationship with her father, Richard, was even more complicated. He was a man of few words, but his silent look said more than 1,000 words could. One night at dinner, Richard finally spoke. "You need to think about your child's future, Emma. You can't keep running from your problems." Emma knew he was right, but her words came out loaded with emotion. "I'm not running, Dad. I'm trying to find a way to move forward. I can't go back to James, not after everything he's done." The silence that followed was crushing. Emma got up from the table, tears streaming down her face, and ran to her room. She felt like a stranger in her own home, a stranger to her own family. The walls of the room that once brought comfort now seemed to close in around her. The nights were the worst. Emma cried herself to sleep, clutching the pillow, feeling more alone than ever. Her parents' rejection was a deep pain, a sense of abandonment that ate away at her from the inside. She looked at the baby's ultrasound, the little heart beating strongly, and promised to be strong, to be better. But doubt and fear consumed her. The days dragged on in a cycle of loneliness and sadness. Margaret tried to help, but her attempts only increased the tension. "You need to find a job, Emma. You need to be independent." Emma knew her mother was right, but the idea of facing the outside world was terrifying. She felt fragile, broken. One morning, while Emma was sitting in the garden, feeling the sun on her face, her mother approached. "Emma, I know this is hard for you, but we need to find a way to move forward. For you and for the baby." Margaret seemed softer, more vulnerable. Emma saw a glimpse of the caring mother she knew. "I'm trying, Mom. I'm really trying." Emma cried, and Margaret hugged her. A tense but loving embrace. It was a small step, but for Emma it was a sign that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for healing. But the tension didn't disappear. Emma still felt the weight of judgment in every interaction. Her father remained distant, her mother struggling to hide her disappointment. Emma knew she needed to do something, find a way to rebuild her life. But every attempt seemed to fail. Every effort was met with more obstacles. One night, sitting on the porch, Emma received an unexpected message from James. "We need to talk. Please give me a chance to explain." Emma's heart raced. The pain and anger returned with full force. She wanted to delete the message, to forget he existed, but something stopped her. A part of her still longed for answers, for closure. She replied with trembling hands, "There is nothing more to say, James. You destroyed me." She sent the message and let out a shaky sigh. Every interaction with him was a reminder of the lost love, of the betrayal that still haunted her. Emma knew the road ahead would be long and painful. She felt like she was walking in a dense fog, not knowing where to go or how to find the way out. But for the baby, she knew she had to keep going. Every movement inside her was a reminder that she wasn't alone, that there was a small life that depended on her. The days turned into weeks, and Emma began to painfully adjust to her new reality. The pain of James' betrayal was still there, but her priority now was the baby. Every medical appointment, every ultrasound, was a mix of joy and sadness. Emma clung to the hope that the little heart beating inside her brought. Then, on a gloomy afternoon, Emma received an unexpected call. It was Victoria. Her voice was loaded with palpable nervousness. "Emma, we need to talk. I know you hate me, but it's important." Emma hesitated. The last thing she wanted was to hear Victoria's voice. But something in her urgency convinced her. "Meet me at the corner cafe in an hour," Emma replied, her voice cold. When Emma arrived, Victoria was already there, looking worn and anxious. Emma sat across from her, the silence between them heavy. "What do you want, Victoria?" Victoria took a deep breath, trying to find the words. "Emma, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but you need to know the truth about why all this happened." Emma crossed her arms, the pain and anger rising inside her. "You destroyed my life. What else do I need to know?" Victoria looked down, tears beginning to form. "James and it wasn't just a betrayal. I was getting revenge on him." Emma was confused. "Revenge? What are you talking about?" Victoria swallowed hard, her words coming out shaky. "Many years ago, when James was a teenager, he and some friends were driving drunk and caused an accident. My brother was in that car and he died. James was never held accountable for it. He went on with his life as if nothing had happened, while my family was destroyed." Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "Are you saying that all this was for revenge? That you got involved with him just to hurt him?" Victoria nodded, the tears now flowing freely. "I wanted him to feel the pain I felt. But in the process I hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted you to be dragged into this." The revelation left Emma stunned. She never knew about James' dark past. She felt torn between anger and sadness for all the secrets and lies surrounding her. "Are you telling me that James killed your brother?" Her voice trembled with the gravity of the words. Victoria shook her head. "Not directly, but he was there. He could have stopped it, could have called for help. But he ran away. I wanted justice somehow." Emma felt a wave of nausea. All the suffering she had gone through, the betrayal, the pain, all of this now had a new layer of complexity. "And now? What do you expect me to do with this information, Victoria?" Victoria looked at Emma, her eyes full of guilt and remorse. "I don't know. I just needed you to know the truth. I'm really sorry, Emma. Truly." Emma stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive you, Victoria. But now I need to think about my child. Nothing else matters." She left the cafe, her heart heavy with the new revelation. She walked through the streets of New York, feeling more lost than ever. The pain, which was already unbearable, now had a new depth. She thought of the baby, of how she would protect this little life from all the chaos and pain that surrounded her. When she got home, Emma locked herself in her room, hugging the pillow and crying until she had no more strength. The pain was crushing, the sense of betrayal deeper than ever. She felt trapped in an endless nightmare, not knowing how or if she would ever get out of it. Time passed, but the pain did not diminish. Emma tried to move on, focusing on her pregnancy and the future of the baby. However, each movement of the baby in her womb brought painful memories of James, and Victoria's revelation continued to haunt her. Every day, Emma felt a mix of love for the child she was carrying and disappointment for the man she thought she knew. One rainy afternoon, Emma was in her room, looking out the window as the rain beat against the glass. Her phone rang and James' name appeared on the screen. She hesitated but finally answered, her voice cold and distant. "What do you want, James?" James sighed on the other end of the line. "Emma, we need to talk. I know you're hurt, but I need to explain." Emma closed her eyes, trying to control her emotions. "I don't know if I want to hear your explanations. You lied to me, hid a horrible part of your past." "I know," said James, his voice full of regret. "I know I messed up. But please give me a chance to explain, to redeem myself." Emma took a deep breath, trying to find the strength to face this conversation. "Come over tomorrow afternoon. We can talk, but I don't expect anything, James." The next day, James arrived at Emma's parents' house, looking older and tired. He sat nervously on the sofa while Emma remained standing, her arms crossed over her chest. "Emma, I'm so sorry for everything," he began. "I never wanted you to find out this way. What happened with Victoria's brother was a terrible mistake. I was young, stupid, and cowardly. I never managed to forgive myself." Emma felt a wave of anger and sadness. "And why did you never tell me?" Why did you hide this from me? James lowered his head, tears streaming down his face. I was afraid. Afraid that you would leave me. Afraid that you would see the monster I once was. But you need to know that despite everything, I have always loved you, Emma. And I still love you. Emma shook her head, fighting back tears. Love? You call this love? You betrayed me, destroyed me, and now you expect me to just forget everything. James stepped closer, reaching out to touch Emma's hand, but she pulled away. Please, Emma, I want to make things right. I know I messed up, but I want to be a father to our child. I want to be there for you. Emma felt a deep pain in her chest. The idea of raising her child without James scared her, but the idea of forgiving him seemed impossible. I don't know, James. I don't know if I can trust you again. James let his hand drop, looking defeated. I understand. I just want you to know that I'm here. No matter what you decide, I'll be here for you and our child. Emma watched as James left, the door closing softly behind him. She collapsed on the sofa, tears finally falling freely. Love and pain mingled, making it hard to breathe. She wanted to believe in James, wanted her child to have a present father. But the fear of being hurt again was paralyzing. In the following days, Emma tried to focus on the future, but doubt and fear continued to haunt her. Every time she felt the baby move, she remembered James' promise to be there, and a part of her heart wanted to believe him. But another part, the part that still hurt deeply, said it was better to move on alone. One night, while lying in bed, feeling the baby kick, Emma whispered, I promise I will do my best for you. I will be strong for both of us. She caressed her belly, feeling more determined than ever to find a way to be happy, to give her child a life full of love and security. Months passed and Emma gave birth to a healthy baby boy, whom she named Noah. Holding Noah in her arms for the first time brought a mix of joy and sadness. She was alone in that hospital room without James, without a hand to hold hers, without someone to share that moment of pure happiness and overwhelming fear. But when Noah looked at her with his innocent eyes, Emma knew it was all worth it. The first months as a single mother were tough. The sleepless nights, Noah's incessant cries, the exhaustion that seemed never ending. Emma felt on the brink of collapse many times, but every smile from Noah, every small milestone he reached, gave her the strength to continue. Even with all the support from her parents, there were moments when she felt overwhelmingly alone. Then one day, while walking in the park with Noah, Emma met David. He was sitting on a bench, reading a book, and smiled at her when Noah started to cry. Do you need help? He asked, his voice soft and gentle. Emma hesitated, but something in David's warm gaze reassured her. I think so, she replied, trying to calm Noah. David stood up and with surprising skill, rocked Noah in his arms until he stopped crying. I'm an uncle to 3 nephews, he explained with a smile. I've learned a few tricks. Their meetings in the park became frequent, and Emma began to open up to David, sharing her struggles and pains. David was understanding and supportive, and over time, Emma started to feel something she thought she had lost forever: hope. He not only accepted Noah but loved him as if he were his own son. One night, while Noah was sleeping, Emma and David were sitting on the couch, the lights dimmed. David held Emma's hand, looking into her eyes. I know you've been through a lot, Emma, but I want to be here for you and Noah. I want to build a life with you. Emma felt the tears well up. David, I'm so scared. I don't know if I can trust again, if I can give myself again. David pulled her closer, his embrace firm and secure. I understand, and I'm here to prove that you can. I'll be here every step of the way, no matter what happens. The following months brought new happiness to Emma. She and David began to build a life together, and each day was proof that true love and respect still existed. Noah adored David, and the 3 formed a family Emma never imagined possible again. But the shadow of James still loomed over her. He continued to send messages, trying to redeem himself, and every time his name appeared on Emma's phone screen, a part of her withdrew. She knew James was Noah's father, and at some point, he would have to be part of their son's life. But the fear of being hurt again was paralyzing. One afternoon, while playing in the park, James suddenly appeared. Noah, recognizing him only from photos, ran toward him, and Emma felt her heart tighten. James picked Noah up, tears in his eyes. "He's beautiful, Emma. Thank you for bringing him into the world." Emma watched, her heart torn between fear and hope. "James, I don't know how to do this." James looked at her, the pain and regret clearly visible on his face. "I know I hurt you, Emma. I know I can't change the past, but I want to be a father to Noah. I don't want to take anything from you. I just want to be present." The tension in the air was palpable, and Emma felt the tears streaming down. "I also want him to have a father, James. But I'm still trying to overcome everything." James nodded, holding Noah carefully. "I understand, and I'll wait. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it." Emma watched as James played with Noah, her heart a storm of emotions. She wanted to believe that people could change, that James could be the father Noah deserved. But the pain was still there, an open wound that would take time to heal. As they walked back to David and Noah, Emma felt the weight of her emotions. David embraced her, sensing her inner turmoil. "Is everything okay?" he asked softly. Emma rested her head on his shoulder, letting a few tears escape. "I just don't know how to balance all this. I want Noah to have a father, but that means dealing with James, with everything that happened." David hugged her tighter. "We'll find a way, Emma. Together. You're not alone." In the weeks that followed, Emma tried to maintain peace between everyone. She allowed James to spend more time with Noah, always supervised, always with a tight heart. At each meeting, she saw flashes of the man she once loved, mixed with the painful memories of betrayal. One day, while Noah was at school, Emma received a message from James. "Can we talk? I need to tell you something important." Her heart raced, and she agreed to meet him at a nearby cafe. James was visibly nervous when she arrived. "Emma, I discovered something about Victoria," he began, his voice tense. "She's obsessed with completely destroying me, and I think she might try to use Noah for that." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean, James? How could she do that?" James took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "She wants custody of Noah. She's claiming that both of us are unfit parents, that our current situation is unstable for him." Panic took over Emma. The idea of losing Noah, of seeing him dragged into a bitter legal battle, was unbearable. "No, this can't happen," she said, her voice breaking. "We can't let this happen." James held her hand, the desperation clear in his eyes. "I know it's asking a lot, but we need to unite against her. For Noah, we need to show that despite everything, we're capable of raising our son in a loving and stable environment." Emma felt the tears streaming down, the pain and fear almost unbearable. "I'll do anything to protect Noah," she whispered. "Anything." The legal process initiated by Victoria threw Emma and James into a spiral of despair and fear. Emma felt like she was living a nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. Each day brought a new wave of anxiety. Each call from the lawyer was a cruel reminder of the fight they faced. Victoria seemed determined to destroy their lives, and Emma couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel. Noah, innocent of all this, continued to play and laugh, his smile a ray of light amidst the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Emma did her best to protect her son from the growing tension, but the pain was palpable in her eyes. David tried to be the rock Emma leaned on, but even he was beginning to feel the weight of the situation. One night, while lying in bed next to David, Emma felt a wave of despair take over. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What if we lose Noah? What if Victoria gets what she wants?" David pulled her closer, holding her tightly. "We're not going to lose Noah, Emma. We're going to fight with all our strength. He's our son, and no one can take that away from us." The days that followed were a chaotic mix of meetings with lawyers, gathering evidence, and emotional testimonies. Emma and James had to relive all the pains of the past, open their lives and their hearts to public scrutiny. Every detail of their failures and fears was exposed, and Emma felt like she was being torn apart. One morning before an important court hearing, Emma found James in the courthouse hallways. He was pale and visibly worn out. "Emma," he began, his voice trembling, "I know this is harder for you than anyone, and I want you to know that I'm willing to do anything to ensure Noah stays with you." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "James, we need to be together in this. Victoria is trying to divide us, and we can't let that happen." James nodded, his eyes full of determination. "I promise, Emma. We'll fight together. For Noah." In court, the legal battle was fierce. Victoria's lawyers painted a grim picture of Emma and James, trying to convince the judge that they were incapable of caring for Noah. But Emma and James fought tooth and nail, showing evidence of their love and dedication to their son. David testified on their behalf, describing how Emma was an incredible mother and how James was trying to change. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating, and Emma could barely breathe as she waited for the judge's decision. When the judge finally spoke, his voice seemed to echo in Emma's head. "After reviewing all the evidence and testimonies, I conclude that Noah should remain under the care of Emma and James, with appropriate supervision to ensure his well-being." Tears of relief streamed down Emma's face, and she turned to hug James. "We did it," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "We did it." James hugged her back, tears streaming down his face as well. "Thank you, Emma. I could never have done this without you." David approached, wrapping both of them in a hug. "We're going to be okay," he said softly. "We're going to get through this together." But the battle with Victoria was far from over. In the following days, she continued to harass Emma and James, trying to find new ways to cause pain. Emma knew she always had to be on alert, always ready to protect Noah from any threat. She felt like she was walking through a minefield, each step a new uncertainty. One night, while putting Noah to sleep, Emma sat beside him on the bed, watching her son breathe softly. "I promise I will always protect you," she whispered, holding his small hand. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." The judge's decision brought a brief relief to Emma, James, and David, but the shadow of Victoria continued to loom over them. The constant threat of new legal actions and Victoria's attempts to poison their lives was a heavy burden. Emma struggled to maintain normalcy for Noah, but every time the phone rang or a new letter arrived, she felt a knot tighten in her stomach. One afternoon, while playing with Noah in the park, Emma felt a familiar presence. She turned and saw Victoria standing a short distance away, watching her. The look on Victoria's face was cold and determined, and Emma knew something was about to happen. "Emma," Victoria called, approaching. "Can we talk?" Emma stood up, her body tense with Victoria's proximity. "I have nothing to say to you," she replied, trying to stay calm. Victoria smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, but I have a lot to say to you. I'm not giving up on Noah. He should be with me." Emma felt the anger bubbling up. "You have no right to my son, Victoria." "None." Victoria took a step forward, her voice low and threatening. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove that you and James are incapable of caring for him. I've ruined James' life once, and I can do it again." Emma felt the despair growing. "You're talking about a child, Victoria. This isn't a game. It's his life." Victoria gave a cruel smile. "To me, it's a game, and I play to win." That night, while at home, Emma couldn't shake off the fear Victoria had planted in her. She felt like she was being watched, like every move was calculated. David noticed her tension and tried to comfort her, but nothing seemed to relieve the dread consuming her. "Emma, we're going to get through this," David said, holding her hands. "She can't tear us apart." Emma looked at him, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "What if she succeeds, David? What if she finds a way to destroy us?" David pulled her into a tight hug. "We're not going to let that happen. We're stronger together." In the following days, Emma took extra measures to ensure Noah's safety. She hired a private security guard, made sure all doors and windows were locked, and installed cameras around the house. Life became a constant battlefield, where every step was calculated and every move was monitored. Then one night, while Emma was putting Noah to bed, A feeling of dread washed over her. She looked out the window and saw a car parked across the street. Her heart started racing, and a wave of fear washed over her. She called James, her voice trembling. "James, I think Victoria is watching us. I need help." James arrived quickly, the worry evident on his face. "Emma, we're not going to let her scare us. We'll face this together." That night, while Noah slept, Emma, James, and David sat in the living room discussing their options. They felt like they were fighting an invisible force, a threat that never seemed to go away. Days later, Emma received a letter from her lawyer. Victoria had requested a new hearing, claiming to have new evidence against Emma and James. Panic took over Emma, and she felt like she was sinking into a sea of despair. But when she looked at Noah playing on the carpet, she found new strength. She stood up determined. "We're not going to let her win. We'll fight, no matter what happens." In court, the battle began again. Victoria brought in witnesses who tried to tarnish Emma and James' character, but they fought with all their might. Each testimony was a stab to the heart, but Emma stood firm, knowing she was fighting for her son's future. The judge, after hearing all the arguments, finally delivered his verdict. "After reviewing all the evidence, I continue to believe that Noah should remain with his mother, Emma, and with the supervised involvement of his father, James. Victoria's petition is denied." Emma felt overwhelming relief, tears streaming freely. She hugged James and David, feeling a bitter but necessary victory. She knew the fight wasn't over, that Victoria could try again. But for now, Noah was safe. As they left the courthouse, Emma held Noah in her arms, whispering in his ear, "Mommy will always protect you, my love. Always." The months that followed were a period of healing and renewal. Emma, David, and James found a harmonious rhythm, each playing their role in Noah's life and building a safe and happy future. But like a dark warning from the past, Victoria reappeared, determined to destroy the peace they had managed to build. One afternoon, while Emma was in the garden with Noah, her phone rang. It was a call from the hospital. "Mrs. Emma, James has been brought to the emergency room. He had a serious accident." Emma's world stopped. The phone almost fell from her hand. Holding Noah in her arms, she ran to the car, her mind full of terrifying thoughts. David met her at the door, his expression worried. "What happened?" "It's James. He's in the hospital." "I don't know what happened, but we need to go now," Emma replied, her voice trembling. When they arrived at the hospital, they were greeted by a doctor with a serious face. "He's in surgery now. The accident was serious. He was hit by a car while trying to save a child who ran into the street." Emma felt her legs give way. David held her firmly, his eyes full of concern. "Is he going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated. "We're doing everything we can." The hours dragged on as they waited for news. Emma held Noah's hand tightly, trying to stay calm for him. Finally, the doctor returned. "James is stable, but the next few days will be critical." Emma and David entered James' room, where he lay surrounded by machines monitoring his every breath. His face was bruised and there were deep cuts, but he was alive. Emma sat beside him, holding his hand. "James, please stay with us. We need you." In the following days, James fought between life and death. Each small sign of improvement was a victory, but the fear of losing him hovered constantly over them. Emma spent every possible moment by his side, whispering words of encouragement, reminding him of everything they still had to live for. "You promised, James. You promised you'd always be here for Noah." James opened his eyes slowly. "Emma," he whispered, his voice weak. Emma leaned closer, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, James. We're all here waiting for you." James tried to smile, his expression full of pain. "I heard your voice. It brought me back." Emma held his hand tightly. "You're a hero, James. You saved a life." James closed his eyes for a moment, fighting against the pain. "I'd do anything for Noah. He's my family." Emma felt her heart tighten, the depth of James' sacrifice hitting her with full force. "We thank you, James, and we'll get through this together." The following weeks were a slow and painful recovery for James. He faced each day with courage, determined to recover for Noah. Emma and David were by his side every step, offering unconditional support and love. One afternoon, while Noah played on the floor beside James' bed, James reached out to touch Emma's face. "I want you to know I'll never stop fighting for Noah. He's everything to me." Emma leaned down, kissing his forehead gently. "We'll never stop fighting for you, James. Noah needs you." James looked at Noah, who was drawing happily. "I see the future in his eyes. And I know that with you by my side, I can face anything." As James' recovery continued, Emma and David strengthened their bonds even more, creating a network of love and support that enveloped James and Noah. They faced the pain, fear, and uncertainty with courage, knowing that James' sacrifice had been an act of pure love. One night, while on the porch, Emma looked at the stars, feeling a deep peace. David approached, hugging her. "He's getting better every day, Emma. We'll get through this." Emma nodded, feeling tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "I know. And I know that with you and James, I can face anything." David kissed her gently, and together they returned inside, where James sat with Noah, smiling despite the pain. The sight of them together, laughing and sharing moments of happiness, filled Emma's heart with hope. The days passed, and James' recovery continued to be a slow process full of challenges. Each small progress was celebrated as a great victory, but the pain and fear still loomed over everyone. Emma divided her time between taking care of Noah, supporting David, and being there for James, feeling the weight of each responsibility on her shoulders. One night, while by James' side in the hospital, she noticed that he seemed more tired than usual. "James, are you feeling okay?" she asked, trying to hide the worry in her voice. James opened his eyes, a weak smile on his lips. "Just tired, Emma. That's all." But Emma knew there was more. She felt a growing unease in her heart, a premonition she couldn't ignore. The next morning, James had a relapse. Alarms sounded, and doctors rushed into the room. Emma was hurriedly taken out, holding Noah, while David held her firmly, trying to offer comfort. Hours later, the doctor came to them, his expression serious. "James is fighting, but we need to be realistic. The next 48 hours will be crucial." Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The idea of losing James was unbearable. "He's strong," she said, her voice trembling. "He'll get through this." David squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with sadness and determination. "We're all here for him." The hours blurred into a mix of despair and hope. Emma spent every possible moment by James' side, whispering words of encouragement, reminding him of everything they still had to live for. "You promised, James. You promised you'd always be here for Noah." James opened his eyes, pain and exhaustion visible. "I'm trying, Emma. For you." But the following night, James worsened. The heart monitor emitted a sharp sound, and doctors rushed to try and save him. Emma was taken out of the room, sobbing while David held her. "He can't leave us, David. He can't." David held her tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I know he's fighting, Emma. He's fighting with all his might." But that early morning, James didn't make it. The doctor left the surgery room, his expression grave. "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." Emma's scream of pain echoed through the hospital corridors. She felt herself crumble, the world around her falling apart. David held her, his face wet with tears. "We'll get through this together," he said, his voice choked. "We'll survive this." The days that followed were a whirlwind of grief and pain. James' funeral was an event full of tears and painful memories. Emma stayed strong for Noah, but every moment without James was torture. She looked at her son's face and saw James' eyes, his smile, and the pain felt unbearable. One night, while Noah slept, Emma sat on the porch looking at the stars. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see David, his face marked by sadness. "He left us an incredible legacy, Emma. Noah is the proof of that." Emma nodded, tears silently streaming down. "He was a hero, David. He saved so many lives, including ours." David pulled her into a tight hug. "We'll honor his memory. We'll raise Noah with all the love he deserves. The months passed, and grief slowly turned into painful acceptance. Emma, David, and Noah found a new normal, carrying James' memory in their hearts. Each day was a battle to find joy amid the pain, but the strength of their family guided them. One morning, as Noah prepared for his first day of school, Emma and David watched with pride. "He's going to be amazing," said Emma, holding David's hand. "Just like his mom," David replied, smiling. Emma felt tears streaming down, but this time they were tears of happiness. "We did it. We got through it." That night, while putting Noah to sleep, Emma whispered in his ear, "Your dad would be so proud of you, Noah. He'll always be with us in our hearts." Noah smiled sleepily, hugging Emma. "I know, Mommy. I feel him here." As they lay down, Emma and David reflected on the journey that brought them to this point. Each challenge, each pain had strengthened the bond between them and created a family full of love and hope. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a future shining before them, Emma, David, and Noah embraced the new hope they had built together. Life went on, and with each new day they found more reasons to smile, more reasons to believe that love would always prevail. The days passed, and James' recovery continued to be a slow and challenging process. Every small progress was celebrated as a great victory, but the pain and fear still loomed over everyone. Emma divided her time between caring for Noah, supporting David, and being present for James, feeling the weight of each responsibility on her shoulders. One night, while she was beside James in the hospital, she noticed that he seemed more tired than usual. "James, are you feeling okay?" she asked, trying to hide the concern in her voice. James opened his eyes, a weak smile on his lips. "I'm just tired, Emma. That's all." But Emma knew there was something more. She felt a growing unease in her heart, a premonition she couldn't ignore. The next morning, James had a relapse. Alarms sounded, and the doctors rushed into the room. Emma was hurriedly taken out, holding Noah, while David held her firmly, trying to offer comfort. Hours later, the doctor came to them, his expression serious. "James is fighting, but we need to be realistic. The next 48 hours will be crucial." Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The idea of losing James was unbearable. "He's strong," she said, her voice trembling. "He'll get through this." David squeezed her hand, his eyes full of sadness and determination. "We're all here for him." The hours blurred into a mix of despair and hope. Emma spent every possible moment by James' side, whispering words of encouragement, reminding him of everything they still had to live for. "You promised, James. You promised you'd always be here for Noah." James opened his eyes, the pain and exhaustion visible. "I'm trying, Emma. For you." But the following night, James worsened. The heart monitor emitted a sharp sound, and the doctors rushed to try and save him. Emma was taken out of the room, sobbing while David held her. "He can't leave us, David. He can't." David held her tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I know he's fighting, Emma. He's fighting with all his might." But that early morning, James didn't make it. The doctor left the surgery room, his expression grave. "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." Emma's scream of pain echoed through the hospital corridors. She felt herself crumble, the world around her falling apart. David held her, his face wet with tears. "We'll get through this together," he said, his voice choked. "We'll survive this." The days that followed were a whirlwind of grief and pain. James' funeral was an event full of tears and painful memories. Emma stayed strong for Noah, but every moment without James was torture. She looked at her son's face and saw James' eyes, his smile, and the pain felt unbearable. One night, while Noah slept, Emma sat on the porch looking at the stars. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see David, his face marked by sadness. "He left us an incredible legacy, Emma. Noah is the proof of that." Emma nodded, tears silently streaming down. "He was a hero, David. He saved so many lives, including ours." David pulled her into a tight hug. "We'll honor his memory. We'll raise Noah with all the love he deserves." The months passed, and grief slowly turned into painful acceptance. Emma, David, and Noah found a new normal, carrying James' memory in their hearts. Each day was a battle to find joy amid the pain, but the strength of their family guided them. One morning, while Noah played in the garden, Emma and David sat on a bench watching him. "James left us an incredible gift," said Emma, her voice soft, "and we'll make sure he knows how much he was loved." David held her hand, a sad smile on his lips. "We're in this together, Emma. We always will be." As the sun set, Emma felt a quiet peace. The pain was still there, a deep scar in her heart, but the strength and love that united them were unshakable. And with this certainty, she looked to the future, determined to live each day with the same courage and love that James had shown. Life went on, and with each sunrise, Emma, David, and Noah found a new reason to smile, a new reason to move forward. And so, with tears of longing and a heart full of love, Emma promised herself that she would honor James' memory by living a full and happy life, as he had always wished for them. The months that followed were full of ups and downs. The grief from losing James was still deep, but Emma, David, and Noah found strength in each other. Each day was a step towards healing, a new beginning amidst the pain. Emma dedicated herself to creating a life full of love and stability for Noah. Every smile, every laugh, was a reminder of James' legacy and a new hope for the future. David was always by her side, his constant support and unwavering love being the foundation she needed. One afternoon, while Emma was at the park with Noah, watching him play with other children, she felt a wave of peace. Noah was running across the grass, his laughter echoing in the air. Emma sat on a bench, closing her eyes and letting the sun warm her face. She felt grateful for these moments of tranquility, for these glimpses of happiness. David arrived shortly after, bringing coffee for the two of them. He sat beside Emma, handing her a cup. "How are things?" he asked, his voice soft and comforting. Emma smiled, watching Noah play. "He's happy, and that's all that matters." David held her hand, intertwining their fingers. "You're doing an incredible job, Emma. James would be proud." She looked at David, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I couldn't do this without you, David. You've been my rock." David smiled, pulling her closer. "We are a team, and we always will be." The months turned into years, and life continued to move forward. Noah grew quickly, and every new milestone was celebrated with joy and tears of longing. Emma and David decided to get married in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family. It was a day of joy and memories, a celebration of the love that united them and the new life they were building together. Noah was the ring bearer, walking down the aisle with a smile that lit up everyone's face. When Emma met David's eyes at the altar, she felt a wave of love and gratitude. They had overcome so many adversities together, and they were stronger than ever. After the ceremony, while everyone was celebrating, Emma stepped away for a moment to be alone. She walked to a small garden, where she sat on a bench and looked up at the sky. "I know you're here, James. I feel your presence every day." David found her shortly after, sitting beside her. "Is everything okay?" Emma smiled, holding his hand. "Yes. I just needed a moment to remember, to give thanks." David hugged her, kissing her forehead. "He's proud of you, Emma. Of us." As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced so many storms, but love and hope always guided them back to the light. Years later, as Noah prepared for his first day of school, Emma and David watched with pride. "He's going to be amazing," Emma said, holding